Hi, Dick McBride here. I hope that you will enjoy this video and find it interesting. South Georgia Island and the Falkland Islands are wildlife hotspots. This is due to their small sizes, their very critical locations, and the fact that they lie in a very fertile area of the southern Atlantic Ocean. You will see all this on the video, but there's another story about South Georgia Island as well. South Georgia Island figures importantly in the life of Sir Ernest Shackleton. He was a British Antarctic explorer in the early parts of the 20th century. He is famous for leading his crew to survival after their ship, the Endurance, was trapped in ice and crushed in the Weddell Sea of Antarctica. They managed to drag their boats to the edge of the ice, and they got to Elephant Island, which is located on the northern tip of the Antarctic Peninsula. However, they were trapped there. There were seals which they could get food and oil for fuel, but they were still trapped there. So in an incredible feat of endurance and navigation, they sailed 800 miles to the northeast through the treacherous Southern Ocean to reach South Georgia Island. At that time, South Georgia Island had a number of whaling stations in operation, and they hoped to get safety there. They reached South Georgia, but the whaling stations were located on the north coast, and they landed on the south coast. So in midwinter, they had to make a trek over glaciers and over mountains to reach one of the whaling stations, which they did. And on this trip, we will actually visit the place where they landed and started their trek, and we'll walk the final part of the trek. So this is another great thing about the trip. I hope you enjoy it. The trip begins by flying from Austin, Texas, via Atlanta, Georgia, to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and then on to Ushuaia, Argentina, the farthest south city in the world. Ushuaia is located on the Beagle Channel. Its harbor is home to many of the cruise ships that go to Antarctica. We will visit the Falkland Islands and South Georgia Island on this trip, but not Antarctica. It's a beautiful afternoon as we wait to board our ship. The Ocean Adventurer is a lovely cruise ship. Accommodations and engines were recently upgraded, and it is a very comfortable and able ship. There are 80-some passengers, with more than that number of crew and staff, so we will be well taken care of. Shortly after boarding, we leave Ushuaia, heading east out the Beagle Channel. And of course, the mandatory life vest instructions and lifeboat assignments. A beautiful sunset behind us and adventure ahead. It's a little over a day's sailing to reach the Falkland Islands. It is always a pleasure to watch the seabirds that are flying behind the boat. These are giant petrels. This is a Cape petrel. And this is a black-browed albatross. We will see thousands of them in the Falkland Islands. We approach the Falkland Islands in the evening and will spend the next 2 days visiting the islands on the northwest side. The wildlife viewing is the best there. sunrise the next morning. We've anchored overnight in a protected area and sail a short way today to our first stop. Our first Zodiac landing.
Well, welcome aboard, everyone. Again, my name is Wayne.
Wayne, thank you.
Again, we have to do a quick little briefing, very short. Again, as we talked about in the video, I am tethered off. If I do have to fall overboard, the motor dies. Okay? So again, there's a throw bag right here. It's clipped on. Just throw me the throw bag, and I will get myself back aboard. What you might do, if you can kneel down, we'll get people on this side to kneel down so that you guys can get a good view over them, and vice versa. And we'll always try and swing the boat around so that everyone gets a good and equal view.
The islands we visit are privately owned, and many have active sheep grazing. These upland geese are very common on the island. We thought these yellow shrubs were very pretty, but actually they're an invasive plant. Soon off, across the island, on the other side is a large black-browed albatross colony. Tussock grass is a very sturdy bunch grass, often difficult to walk among. We get right up very close to the colony. And there were a lot of rockhopper penguins scattered among the albatross. Well, there were many black-browed albatross there. We will even see more tomorrow. Then a hike up the island's tallest peak, Mount Ararat. We enjoyed a beautiful view up here. You could see a long way off. And this is a striated caracara. There are lots of them in these islands. And a family of upland geese. They call this invasive shrub gorse. 98% of the islanders voted to stay with the United Kingdom after the 1982 Argentine War. This is the islanders' home. They laid out an extensive dessert and tea buffet for us. While we were eating lunch, we transferred to Saunders Island. The wind and the waves were up a little bit here this afternoon, so the Zodiac trip was a little rougher than usual. Saunders Island has 4 species of penguins. It was the site of the first British settlement in the Falkland Islands. Current population, 7. Some very active caracaras. You have to be tough to survive in this climate. This turkey vulture was almost stationary in the high wind. Penguin colonies always have skuas looking for an easy meal. Sheep are the second largest source of income for the Falkland Islands after the issuance of fishing permits. The remains of a bowhead whale. A Magellanic oyster catcher, and some Magellanic penguins. They differ from other penguins in nesting underground. Rockhopper penguins are also in this imperial cormorant colony. Well, that was a wonderful first day of exploration. The weather was right for visiting Steeple Jason, a rare privilege today. A cue for zodiac boarding. And there is the reason for our visit here. The world's largest black-browed albatross colony. 200,000 breeding pairs.
Santiago's there, Paula's there, Kyle is there, Amanda's there. So just do be alert to their direction. If they have any pieces of information for you about where there's nests or anything like that, please follow that without hesitation.
The landing here was one of the roughest of the entire trip. Some pretty spectacular lichens on these rocks. And then there was some local entertainment by a determined Kara. And we definitely are not in Antarctica. And here's the largest black-browed albatross colony in the world. 200,000 breeding pairs. What a very special place. Some gentos came over to say goodbye, and we'll miss you too. During lunch, we cruise over to Carcass Island. Our second landing of the day at Carcass Island, another windy landing. This was another windy Zodiac trip, and all of a sudden, Here they come back. Here they come. Wow, that was exciting and fun. Carcass Island is another sheep farm. It has 2 inhabitants. It occasionally rises to 4 in the summer. Lacking predators, it has a higher concentration of small birds than other areas. Great camouflage, don't you think? Looks like a mother duck and ducklings. Lots of geese and ducks. It was a fairly short walk over to the other side. Here's another goose. It's springtime in the southern hemisphere. Overnight, we sailed from West Falkland to East Falkland and Stanley, the capital. Some of us watched from the bridge. The entire population of the Falkland Islands is about 3,000. 2,500 of them live here. We had to be checked in and out of the islands through this checkpoint here. We were given the day to explore. We were intrigued by these names on the other side of the bay. They are the names of the Falkland Islands fishing patrol boats. The local Anglican church. This structure is made from whale jawbones. A visit inside the church. The city is being overrun by these people in yellow coats. The Stanley Government Building. We spent most of our time in Stanley's wonderful museum and listening to its 1890s symphonium. People come from far and wide to see the gnome yard, at least from the ship. If it's British, it's fish and chips and a beer. In the afternoon, we leave the Falkland Islands behind and are on our way to South Georgia. It's about a 2.5-day cruise across the Scotia Sea. At sea, nothing is fixed. The future could hold anything. James Gorman. Right on schedule, our first iceberg. We are also approaching the Shag Rocks.
We'll be in the vicinity of a number of seabirds, both the colonies on the rocks and birds likely to use the iceberg from. So the starboard side of the ship will be a great place for viewing.
The shag is another name for the imperial cormorant, which we have seen earlier. The ship's captain, Captain Gonta at the helm there, was as excited to be on this trip as we were. And about the future holding anything? Humpback whales. And lots of them.
See this one with its pectoral flipper in the air at 10 o'clock? Yeah, there were just, that was like 15. There's more too. Whoa!
Big daddy. Very good.
How lucky are we? Our first stop in South Georgia is King Haakon Bay. This is where Shackleton, Worsley, and Crean landed and began their cross-island trek. We will encounter their path later in this trip as we retrace the final leg of that trek. It seems that this site has a welcoming committee. You've heard him talk before, but that's Solon Jensen, the excursion leader. We encounter elephant seals and king penguins here on the shore. And for seals, and a furry black baby. A short ways in from the shore is a small pond with pintail ducks. What a gorgeous day. This climb to a nearby prominence reveals a gorgeous panorama. Some of us have settled in for some king penguin watching. Cape Rosa with an enlargement of Cave Cove, where Shackleton's party took refuge on their first day. We had sailed back out to the mouth of King Haakon Bay, where we sighted this grounded iceberg. Jane and Marla look back into the bay, where we will return for the afternoon. We spent the afternoon zodiacking and kayaking among the ice close to the glacier to explore this part of the bay. Overnight, we sail around the northwest end of South Georgia to Salisbury Plain on the north shore.
Ladies, as dry as we can. And when you get ashore, don't stop to take pictures. On the way up, go right to the life jacket bag. Danny will lead you. Again, don't stop to take pictures. There's a lot of fur seals, and they're all fighting for attention on the beach. Third very important thing is keep your head on the swivel here. It's not like yesterday. A lot of fur seals here, so always look around for yourself and for your fellow paddlers.
It was a damp, gray day, but our anticipation was high. This is the second largest king penguin colony on the island. Its population of 60,000 swells to over 230,000 during the molting season, which is now. The landing party has to clear a path for us to land.
Keep yourselves today as polite guests, right? Move slow, keep your voices down, stay with your buddy. You'll notice that the wildlife here responds on its own course if you move slowly. So as you make your way, keep that in mind. We've flagged a route away from the beach and to an area where there's good footing and also not a huge density of wildlife, so that you can make your way around closer to a view of the main part of the colony. That's one objective. You can see there's wildlife everywhere here today, so don't feel like you need to make your way there. Feel free to just sit here and observe.
Fur seals and king penguins share the shore. They sound happy to see us. The whole place had a primeval feeling to it. There was a large plain with the animals spread out across it. Male fur seals had their areas staked out, waiting for the females. I couldn't tell if there was an egg under there or if they was just practicing. Just out for a stroll with the guys, I guess. Lots of penguins ahead. Fur seals can move very quickly and have nasty tempers. A bite can lead to a serious infection and an immediate end to the expedition. "230,000 penguins," they say. The high-pitched chirps are individual babies calling, each one distinctive for a mother. And now, the big picture. On the way back, a skua performing some hygiene. Yes, they can be very fast. Good weather is forecast, so we make a dash for St. Andrews Bay. Weather conditions often prevent expeditions from landing here. When we arrived, katabatic winds over 60 knots initially prevented our landing, but subsided in a couple of hours. In fact, this might have been the most beautiful day of the entire trip. This is the largest king penguin colony on the island, approaching a population of 500,000 during molting season. There is also a large southern elephant seal population here. The snow-covered mountains were a magnificent backdrop. Elephant seal pups are called weaners. The king penguin numbers here are nothing compared to what we will see in just a short while. Ah, the good life. Moving inland some, a view from a slight rise. And this is what 500,000 penguins look like.
There's a lot of chicks. Half of them seem to be brown.
Yes. That's all right.
Young males hang out together, just like they do all over the world in all sorts of species. She's nesting and he's doing his thing. And then these guys show up. If it's so difficult to move around, why they go so far from the ocean? There's a bunch hanging there by the glacier-fed river. The old swimming hole. One could spend the entire day watching the comings and goings of penguins. They sure don't mind us. That was just beautiful in so many ways. So lucky to have seen St. Andrews. We now sail back to Fortuna Bay along the north coast of South Georgia Island. This is the entrance to Fortuna Bay. A number of us are landed here and trekked the final portion of Shackleton's trek to Stromness Whaling Station. Tara points that away we will go, up. It's late afternoon when we begin. We reach the top at Green Lake. This is one of the reasons that people come here. And soon, Stromness Bay. There was an active whaling station here in 1916. Tara has been reading portions of Shackleton's account at various points along the way. That section in the background was steep with loose rocks and was very difficult for some of us. After the ship let us off, it sailed around to Stromness Harbor, and we even saw it coming in. These Gentoo penguins seemed really lost being so far from the water. Down from the mountains and a flat walk to the harbor. Remnants of the old whaling station. The trek was difficult at times, but well worth the effort. And what a lovely sight we returned to. The next morning, we're at Godthel Fjord. Mount Paget is the tallest peak in South Georgia, and in any part of the United Kingdom for that matter, at just under 10,000 feet. A great place for the kayakers to get in the water.
Wow, isn't that awesome?
He likes yellow.
The blue skag is a cormorant. A snapshot. Some remnants of the whaling activities of the early 20th century.
No bag.
Mind your finger.
Yeah, I know. I didn't mind anything but the bag.
very happy group of people. During the lunch hour, we sail over to Grytviken. Shackleton's gravesite. He died on South Georgia in 1922 from a heart attack at the age of 48.
Here, here.
His body was originally on its way back to the United Kingdom, but his wife asked that he be buried here. His friend and fellow explorer Frank Wild was buried here later. Grytviken was the hub of South Atlantic whaling operations for over 60 years. It housed over 300 men at the height of operations and processed more than 54,000 whales. This site is being preserved as a museum. It will host about 80 cruise ships this year. The beautiful Antarctic Tern. This former director's house has been repurposed as the museum's headquarters. A replica of the lifeboat that Shackleton sailed to South Georgia in is next door. A tense moment.
Whoa! Whoa! Hey! He just wants to get away, I think.
The black pots are tripods, from where Grytviken gets its name. Quite a historic place. And an excellent example of exiting your zodiac. Overnight, we sail to the southeast end of the island, Gold Harbor. This area is inhabited by king penguins, some gentoo penguins, and elephant seals, and it's quite an experience. Well, the male elephant seals are up to their normal behavior. There are wieners everywhere. Just one of those wonderful summer days. There's more action here than a three-ring circus. Well, if effort were the only thing that counted, this guy would be 1,000 feet high. The Ugly Duckling Stage. only one skua allowed.
I think he's coming in for
More than 25,000 nesting pairs here. So with population probably close to 100,000 penguins. This one's almost there. Who knows what got into this one? This is the Bertrand Glacier. There's another penguin launch. And it took a constant effort to keep the wieners from getting into our equipment. Could anything be more fun than watching these animals in action? I don't think so. This afternoon we sailed to the southeast tip of the island. Hi there, Kathy. Hi there, Ian. Good to see you again. Great trip. Our last Zodiac ride into Cooper Bay. These are chinstrap penguins, the first that we've seen on the trip. Fur and elephant seal populations were almost hunted to extinction in the 19th century. The stark surroundings held a beauty all their own. These shags seem to have the penthouse. I don't know how many giant petrels are in the South Georgia area, but there certainly seem to be a lot. This is one of the only macaroni penguin colonies readily accessible by boat. This inlet was a new and exciting discovery for our staff.
This is like a scene out of Fellowship of the Ring, you know?
Yeah. We could create our own Lord of the Rings in here.
A magnificent memory to leave of South Georgia Island. Well, we'll soon be leaving, but we've got another place to visit before we leave South Georgia. Dragalski Fjord. The weather outside was brutal, but it did seem that we had a number of masochists among us. At times, I do worry about Rocky. And Jennifer seems to have some issues too. We've been blessed with such good weather on this trip, and it would have been nice to have just a little bit better time to look at this beautiful area. But we leave South Georgia about a half day earlier than we originally planned because of a very strong storm currently rounding Cape Horn. We would have encountered that storm on our original route back. In order to avoid most of that weather, we have sailed to Beauchene Island, which lies about 100 miles south of the Falkland Islands. And like so many of the other islands that we've encountered on this trip, it's covered with thousands of seabird nests, probably black-browed albatross. None of the staff or the crew had ever visited the island before. The captain was so excited that he sailed completely around the island. A small speck sitting lonely here in the raging southern Atlantic. It's just another unique experience on this marvelous excursion. And now back to Tierra del Fuego and Ushuaia. What a spectacular journey. We had great weather and landed everywhere we wanted to. We were told that a ship that went to Antarctica at the same time that we left on our trip only managed one landing the entire time they were there. How sad. This excursion had it all. A great staff, good weather, wonderful food, and like-minded fellow passengers. I feel very fortunate to have been part of all this.